Would like to call the meeting to order. Take the roll, please.
President Knobloch,
Here.
Vice President Gillen,
Here.
Treasurer Rayner,
Here.
Secretary Sislo here, Director Becker,
Here.
Director Ertel,
Here.
Director, I'm sorry, I can't read my own writing here. Director James,
Here.
Director Nutting,
Present.
Director Ramirez,
Here.
Director Tozen,
Here.
and ex officio Marthouse, not here. We have a quorum.
Okay, would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As you can see on the agenda, the minutes of the last meeting on September 21st were approved by email vote on September 24th, 2020, and will be published as soon as possible in the Diamondhead News.
Okay, the next thing is we want to approve or amend the meeting agenda. Anybody have anything that needs to be added? Mr. Gillen?
The first one is to amend for action, approve a contract to repair the potholes at the marina launch area, not to exceed $3,500. We've gotten a quote to redo the approach area with new asphalt. It was $32,000, which is way out of any kind of budget we can afford this year. But this should get us into next year and maybe well into the year where we have to worry about anything else.
Okay, so that'll be number 6.
And I apologize for adding these, but some of these all just came up this week. Oh, that was already on here, I'm sorry.
Sorry, but.
You got them all on the road? No, I got it. All right, okay. All right, the next one is a motion to approve an agreement with the U.S. Department of Agriculture for feral swine removal from the airport area. Contract is not to exceed $2,500. We've had one that expired last month, and it was for 6 months, and it was highly successful. It cost us a little over $800, and they removed 23 pigs from the area. The next one is a motion to replace the airport fuel nozzle, not to exceed $1,000. All of the new equipment is in for the fuel nozzle, or for the fuel hose. Everything is ready to install, and we've been having a problem with the nozzle. That has tried to repair it. If we were to try to put a kit in it, we were looking at around $700. The committee decided that it was a nozzle that probably has been there for 30 years, that it would be money well spent just to get a new one. And the last one is a motion to enter into an agreement with Mr. Tommy Tusa to install a boat lift in his rented space on the floating docks. This would be at his expense, and it's contingent on an assigned agreement addressing all legal matters that would hold the Diamondhead POA harmless.
Okay, actually, that's number 6, 7, and 8, because when we talked about the marina launch approach area, that was already on your agenda as number 4. We're having a technical problem.
All right.
Okay, the next thing is the residents report. Last month, a report dealt with the POA amenities in relationship to future property values. This month, it's going to be about future finances of the POA. The POA is financially responsible for maintaining amenities that are valued between 15 and $20 million. POA dues make up about 50% of the revenue to maintain the amenities. The remaining 50% comes from user fees such as golf, food and beverage sales, facility rentals, sales of lots, and so forth. As covenants expire, the income of the POA in terms of dues contains a great deal of uncertainty. About 43% of the members pay their dues on a yearly basis, normally in December or January. 9 sets of covenants have already expired in 2020, with another set expiring in December of 2020. In 2021, 1 set of covenants expire in June, 7 sets in July, and 4 sets in August. That means we do not have any accurate figures to base revenue for 2021 at this time. Most of the board seems to agree what we're going to have to do is pass a budget in December of this year, but we're going to have to come back after 3 months of next year and then revise it possibly significantly, because we just don't know at this time. By that time, after 3 months, we'll have accurate figures to some extent to base decisions, because 10 sets of covenants will have already expired. We produced a chart showing possible loss of revenue as covenants expire. It's over in that area. I realize you can't see it from where you are, but I'll tell you about it and you can look at it afterwards. In fact, I would encourage you to go take a look at it afterwards. The loss of covenants, the numbers on the chart were calculated using the number of properties that lose covenants and the month in which the covenants expire. That's actually important, because if they expire in June, technically you've already received member dues for the months of January through May. There are 3 columns on the chart. The year in which the covenants expire, and it goes from 2020 through 2029, because that's technically the last year that some expire, although some are in perpetuity. The number of properties losing covenants each year varies from 0 to 1,430. The dues lost is another column up there. The dues lost if 100% of the properties in each area do not continue to pay dues. That's one column. Then there's another column that says dues lost if 30% of the properties in each area losing covenants continue to pay. All numbers on the chart are cumulative, since if you lose $1 million this year, next year you've already lost $1 million, and it still won't be there the following year. So just a couple of examples. Remember, in the past, dues have brought in about 50% of the money needed to keep all the amenities up and running. The last few years, it's been about $3 million. At the end of 2021, the POA will have lost slightly over $1 million if 100% of the properties that lost covenants stop paying. And if 30% continue to pay, that's continue to pay, the POA will have lost about $734,000 in revenue. If you keep using that same type of working knowledge of it, at the end of 2023, the POA will have lost between $1.8 and $2.7 million of revenue. At the end of 2025, using the same reasoning, the POA will have lost between $2 million and $2.9 million. And remember, we're dealing right now with income of $3 million to help pay for everything. You might ask why the 30% was used as an example. It's no great mathematical formula. We do know that some residents will certainly continue to pay if they understand what might happen here in terms of property value. So it was just picked out of the air, to be perfectly honest. You may hear that the POA won a lawsuit against the original developer who defaulted on the loan. A bank took over a large amount of land here. The bank does not want to be a property owner. This is all public knowledge, so nothing I'm saying is anything hidden or some special knowledge about it. The POA did win a judgment in the Mississippi Supreme Court saying that the POA is supposed to get back dues worth over $1 million from the bank that took over the land. However, the Mississippi Supreme Court remanded the decision back to a lower court to determine the exact amount. The bank has appealed the ruling and is asking that the decision be reversed. who knows exactly what's gonna happen on that? None of us do. In addition, even if the previous decision is upheld, the bank has indicated they're gonna appeal that decision some other sort of way. Might turn out that there's some sort of negotiated settlement at some point, I really don't know. But the POA simply cannot depend on that money from that lawsuit at any time right now. Even if the POA is ultimately successful, the amount would only help for a year when it's received, because you wouldn't be getting it after that. At the end of the meeting, I'll encourage you definitely to go check out this chart over here so you have a better understanding of what's going on. Two other just quick thoughts. Be sure to have your ID card with you, because anytime you come in and go to order something to eat or drink, the servers are being asked to show your ID card, and they can scan it to see that you're a member in good standing and so forth. We're going to reach the point where only members in good standing will be able to attend meetings and so forth. We don't want to give the 15% to people who are not members of good standing, which basically means they're paying dues up to date. Finally, most of you here tonight are interested in the future of our community. In my opinion, there's only one way for us to have a chance of remaining viable in the future. We need each of you to talk to your friends and neighbors and explain to them the changes that are coming in the near future and the importance of working together to make Diamondhead a desirable place to live and raise a family in the future. Thank you. The next thing we have are committee reports. We'll just start on this end. Dr. Nutting, do you have anything?
I'm not chairman of any of the committees, and I'll let the chairman of those committees.
Okay, we'll move down to Mr. Ramirez Jr.
So, Grounds Committee, we met, we've agreed that we're gonna meet on the second Tuesday of every month at 4 o'clock. We reviewed social policy and the committee charter. We've made a decision, we looked at all of the different assets, amenities that we are supposed to review and made the decision to tour each one of them and see what we can do, what ideas that we may have or be able to come up with that may make them more appealing to the community. And that tour is scheduled for next Tuesday, the 20th, next week, and looking forward to that. We also had discussion around the RV park. There are several different options and possible opportunities to make that more viable and more appealing to people with Diamondhead. And so right at the present moment, POA actually has a plan in place and is working towards revamping the area, and so we're going to wait and let them get finished with what they're going to do, and then see if if we can help in any way to make it even better. We also talked about the fact that the POA is taking care of the exit drive from the community center all the way to the yacht club, and expense that incurs, and the amount that the city is paying, which is a minimal amount compared to the total cost. And so we're looking at, that's something that the POA is also actually already looking at. Mr. Abity is actually looking at, and we're gonna let that play out also, but and see see where it lands and see if that's something else that we might be able to do something about. We've got another meeting scheduled for in another couple of weeks, and we're going to do our tours and see what we can come up with, and we'll be back to you and the board on different ideas.
Okay, thank you, Mr. James. Do you have anything?
No.
Ms. Rayner? Mr. Gillen?
I have two. The committee, administration committee report. The POA now has hired a new attorney to represent us, and he is presently working on POA business. The committee has completed its evaluation of Elliott Holmes' proposal, and the POA attorney has now made contact with them to draw up a proposal that is agreeable to both parties, and we'll be reporting on that as it progresses. We've worked on contacting a number of members in the next group of covenants that are going to expire. This is a small group. Preliminary, I guess you could say the preliminary look at it is that there are probably about 20 people who aren't paying dues at the present time. We would have to cut that down to about 15 or 16 if those others would all agree to renew their covenants, this would maybe give us a little bit of a push towards getting other people to want to do that. The other thing is maybe contacting and explaining what the covenants do for us will maybe get some of the people that are not paying or just recently decided not to pay to start paying again. We took a look at the deconsolidated fees that were changed last year. The concern is that making it easy to deconsolidate will result in smaller lots and loss of green space, which will affect the aesthetics and the value of your neighborhood. The action had to be tabled because the expiration of the covenants removes the POA's ability to regulate this. There's a lot of talk about what happens when you don't have to pay dues, and that seems to be what everybody wants to hang their hat on. The problem is when you lose your covenants, this is some of the things you're going to lose. You're going to lose the ability to keep your neighborhoods in the shape that you wanted them. If you have a house in your neighborhood that's built on 3 lots and the 2 lots on each side, or when the house is bought, the people decide we're going to take these, sell them, and pay for part of our house, a contractor's going to come in, build houses on them, and your neighborhood's going to change. The green space is going to be gone forever. The PO members who are part of this committee have added a lot of new ideas to attract new members to our amenities, and those ideas have been passed on for the other committees to act on. Airport Marina Committee report. The new fuel hose reel, motor accessories that were ordered to replace the non-functioning reel are all here, except that we now have a problem with the nozzle. Unfortunately, these things happen with equipment that's old, and that's up today for consideration. The fuel tank has been inspected, fuel filter replaced, and has been put on an annual inspection. There was some rust on the tank that was noticed, and the facilities group is taking care of that rust and getting that repainted. A new contract for the USDA for feral swine removal for the airport was approved by the committee, and that's up for vote tonight. A survey was done of the aviation fuel prices in our area, and we are in line with all of the surrounding facilities. We are, however, investigating ways to purchase fuel at a cheaper price. There's also now, we have a bid for repairing the boat launch area. That's up for approval tonight. And we also are having ongoing discussions about dredging canals, with many options being discussed. The committee is looking into solutions to help cut down on speeding in Paradise Bayou. And the committee is also looking into sponsoring a fishing rodeo in the November-December timeframe.
Thank you. I have the Futures Committee. Basically, some of what we're doing is overlapping with some of the other committees, but we have spent considerable time looking through legal documents and attorneys' opinions from various attorneys over the last 50 years, okay? Some of the stuff is absolutely incredible. But in summary, there is no magic bullet out there for us to just shoot or implement to solve all the situations that we're in. We did set up a meeting with the representatives from Purcell Corporation, and we recently met with them. I can't really say anything specific because of an impending lawsuit, but it's not from the Purcell group. In my opinion, some things came out that I think could be good or helpful to the POA in the future. We've already talked about the People's Bank lawsuit. We've been checked again on the payroll protection program. That's where you had the loan for $669,000 by the government, and if you kept the people employed and you can document it, it's scheduled to be forgiven, so that would be helpful. We looked at the Lazy Gator lease and the airport lease, and most people believe they're not perfect, but they're better than having the POA try to run them. The workers' compensation insurance has come up from our group and other people on here, and it's exceedingly high. Lloyd Ramirez Jr. has an extensive background in safety procedures. I know he's in reviewing the entire situation, and Mr. Becker, I know, has a lot of experience dealing with workers' compensation things, so we're trying to work through that. The GM is in the process of looking at the entire organization, and it's making suggestions about improvement. One quick example, our controller, that's the person who's responsible for keeping track of the money, basically, okay, does not have a backup, a human backup, if he's not here for some reason. Think about it. The best thing I can say is that's not the best thing I've ever heard. Okay, so that's going to change. All right, and there were some changes are on the agenda tonight. We've had the discussion of revenue versus expenditures. We all agree we don't have accurate figures for upcoming revenue, but we need to prepare for the worst case scenario that we can and hope for the best. We're starting now to look specifically at what we can do if revenues decrease significantly starting this year, next year. Thank you.
Excuse me, I'll go. Sorry. I'm the chairman of the Recreation Committee, and our committee so far has taken the time to survey all the various walking trails, the playgrounds, the tennis court area, as well as Twin Lakes, looking for areas that can be improved, ways that we can generate funds, things that we can do to make recreation even better in Diamondhead. We're at the point now where we've kind of consolidated a list. We're going to work with the general manager to see if we can set some priorities, also keeping in mind some of the budget constrictions that we have. So our committee's moving along, trying to make a lot of sense out of all the detail that we have.
Thanks, Nancy. The House Committee had a meeting yesterday. The House Committee covers food and beverage. One of the things Ernie stole from me was the membership cards. If you have not gotten your updated photo ID membership cards, you definitely need to get them, because the 19th hall, the patio, and the dining room will start scanning them now. Not only do you have to show them, they're actually going to start scanning them. So it's really important that you bring that card with you every time that you're in the club as well. The other discussions we had was the increased business that we've gained just with the outdoor patio. We've had much success with that, as well as the shrimp boil on Saturday nights and the kid meal free with an adult meal on Saturday night has driven a lot of revenue in the dining room and in the outside patio on Saturday nights. Other than that, that's all the House Committee has.
I'm the chairman of the Golf Committee. And the Golf Committee met on October the 8th and unanimously endorsed the general manager's plan for the Golf Academy's repurposing. You'll hear more about that on the agenda later tonight. We're looking at the leases of the golf carts that are expiring next year. They're net $1 buyout leases, so we're looking at whether it's best for us to just own the equipment or trade it in. There's high trade-in values right now. We looked at a proposal made by the EasyGo company, and we like that very much, but we're waiting for Club Card to come back and give us their final offer. We asked Yamaha to participate, but as of now, we haven't heard anything from them. We looked at drainage issues. Dan Heyman, the superintendent, Greg Aberdeen, the general manager, and I went out and looked at some drainage issues on the golf course. Dan's come up with a plan to help drain the right side of the number 3 fairway along the cart path where the water builds up. And we met with Mike Rizzo about dredging the pond on number 17 of the pine. Subsequent to that meeting, we also looked at the pond on number 4 of the Cardinal,
We came to an agreement with Mr. Rizzo, who I think all of you know is the general manager of the city, that we would very soon go out and look at all of the retention ponds on the golf course so that he could present to the city council one plan for dredging all of those ponds with our cooperation. He was very cooperative, and we're working towards that. We also looked at the legacy group tee times. We're having some issues with people being able to get tee times when they want to play. So we asked the golf shop, would they please look at the legacy tee times and see whether they're all being used, or how many are being used and how many are just blocked off and going unused. So Chris Altice, the director of golf, is supposed to get back and give us an answer about that. We also had a suggestion from the committee that the golf shop inventory be reviewed and get possible input from a merchandising person. Subsequent to the meeting, the GM suggested that the director of golf and superintendent be invited to participate at the golf committee meetings so we could answer some questions on the spot. I think that's a great idea, and we're going to do that going forward. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I expected Mr. Tozan to have something to say. Okay, next is the general manager's report. Mr. Abity?
For some reason, I've been short all my life. My reach isn't very good, so thank you for this. You know, I've enjoyed the first half of this meeting and have some comments that I'd like to pass along. The discussion about covenants expiring is an important topic. And it's important to differentiate the fact that covenants pertain to your property and building setbacks and architectural guidelines, and how that differs from the fact that as property owners, your opportunity to continue to maintain the amenities through paying POA dues is a necessity. Without your dues, the amenities will gradually deteriorate. And that doesn't pertain to covenants. It pertains to the fact that without dues, the amenities will gradually go away. And that's a harsh reality and not easy to digest. But as I look at an example of recent occurrence, in June of year 2020, this year, we had 800 properties approximately where the covenants expired. And recently, this week, Darian, our controller, and his accounting staff pulled together some information to tabulate, of those 800 properties, how many properties continue to pay dues, POA dues, even though their covenants have expired. And I'm pleased to read the results of this. Of the 800, 516 continue to pay dues. And I'm pleased to have read that for you. And of that 516, there's 255 pay on an annual basis. So they're paid up through the end of this year. The remainder, 261, pay on a monthly basis. That's encouraging, but at the same time, we can't count on that from future because it's unknown. But the fundamental point that I'm trying to make is covenants with or without, the amenities need support in the form of POA dues. The question I have for the board and myself is, what are we going to do to educate the property owners of the fundamental fact that we need their continued support in the form of dues if we're gonna maintain their lifestyle and we believe their property values. Last meeting, a letter was presented and discussed and critiqued fairly and properly, and the end result is a revision to that letter, and I'm asking the board for consideration to readdress that topic and give consideration to what we're gonna do to communicate to property owners of the fundamental fact that covenants expire, we still need your support in the form of dues. So that's where I sit on that topic and ask for some guidance from the board. In your information package, which I've prepared for each of you, you'll see the typical financial report. This is for the month of September, and also year-to-date, January through September. September was a pretty good month if you look at the bottom line. In addition to that, you'll see other statistical data that I think you'll find important and useful as we go forward. I'd like to second the comment made by Mr. Becker as it relates to the city of Diamondhead and its representatives for being very cooperative in a spirit of working together with the POA on a number of matters that we've brought to their attention. And I look forward to not only continuing that pattern, but enhancing it as we go. There's one other item that I wanted to discuss with all of you this evening, and it deals with a point made by one of the committee chair of the importance of keeping your membership card with you and presenting it. Here's the key. Not only do you have the card, but you want to continue to pay your dues to the POA so you remain a member in good standing. You can have the card, but if you let your account go delinquent and become past due, it will show that you're not a member in good standing and therefore not entitled to the preferred pricing and other benefits of being a member in good standing. So having the card is step one. Getting it passed where you obtain the preferred pricing is the equally important step. And most of all, I want to say to all of you who are here this evening that we appreciate your continued patronage and enjoyment of the club. Teresa earlier spoke about the success of the patio and the 19th hole and the good things that are taking place. None of that would happen if it wasn't for you folks and your neighbors and the friends who come out and enjoy it. So we're here to provide product and service, and anytime that we can assist you with whatever you might be experiencing, good, bad, or indifferent, don't hesitate to give us a call. Thank you.
We may have a solution to this in a month. Okay, Ms. Kingsley, do we have anybody signed up to speak on agenda items?
We do. Tony Gray with the SPCA.
Okay, Tony, over here.
We don't have our little timer, Tony.
I made my speech so that it's 3 minutes.
Okay.
I may be talking kind of fast.
I'm gonna time, when you get to 1 minute, I'm gonna hold up my hand so you know.
Well, I'll be reading, so you not see that. For those who are not familiar, I'm Tony Gray, president of the SPCA of Diamondhead. And for those who are not familiar with what the SPCA does, briefly, we issue vouchers to the residents of Diamondhead to get their pets spayed and neutered for free. We also have a feral cat TNR program where we trap feral cats and have them spayed or neutered and vaccinated for rabies. We've had 54 feral cats fixed in just the past few months. We also work closely with the police department regarding stray dogs. When animal control and the shelter closes at 4 o'clock and on weekends and holidays, residents will call us and we have them contact the police to file a report, and then we board the dog and provide medical care if needed until the shelter opens or until we can find the owner. Today, I want to talk about the problem at the pond regarding the dumping of Muscovy ducks. When I moved here 6 years ago, there were only 3 very old Muscovy ducks, 2 males and a female, very docile, no problems. The female died last year. Then several months ago, someone dumped 5 Muscovies. 1 was killed almost immediately, another was hit by a car but survived, and 2 have been very aggressive. Then last week, someone dropped off another 7. That's when I contacted Ernie about getting a no dumping sign for the pond and asking for help in getting the ducks relocated. He was concerned about the liability and legal issues. So I contacted Mississippi Wildlife in Jackson. There was nothing regarding Muscovies. I knew that Florida had a Muscovy problem and found that there are laws there as well as a federal law. It is illegal for Muscovies which have been in captivity on private property to be dumped in a wildlife area because of their potential to transmit diseases to or interbred with native waterfowl. Since we are a bird sanctuary, we need to be enforcing this regulation. I brought some suggested signs and other examples, and we are working to get the new Muscovies relocated to a private pond. Last year, the police called us about 2 Peking ducks that were dumped at Twin Lakes. We were able to relocate those. So if possible, it would be great to have 2 signs at the pond on Gex and 2 at Twin Lakes. And if I have just a second, to request that you include geese, alligators, and turtles on the signs. It would be great, because we have had alligators dumped and turtles.
Thank you, Tony.
You can just leave it there, dear, there might be some other
Okay.
things.
Okay, we do not have anything under unfinished business that needs to be dealt with. We don't have anything under consent agenda today, so we'll move right to the regular agenda. We have a motion to combine the position of the country club front of the house manager with the role of food and beverage manager, effective November the 1st, 2020. Anyone like to make that motion?
I'll make it, Ernie.
Dr. Nutting makes that motion. We need a second. Ms. Rayner seconds it. Discussion, Mr. Nutting?
The gentleman that we have as the front of the house manager, Chris, has been doing a marvelous job, and I'm more than content with him being able to handle the whole show. This rolls into the number 2 motion where, well, actually, anyway, he's doing a great job, and I'm all in favor of this motion.
Anyone else have any comments?
The only thing that I want to say is that we have discussed, and that is that the reason for this motion is in order to increase the revenue for the clubhouse, and that we're going to look at the, if that is, how that is progressing in a 3-month, 6-month period of time, or every 6 months, however we want to look at it. But we're not going to let it go for 2 years and then realize, hey, this didn't work, then we should do something different. We're going to do that in a shorter time frame.
Okay, were you talking about motion number 1 or number 2?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
My apologies.
Okay, just hold on to that one. So we have a motion and a second. Anybody else have any other questions? All in favor, please put your hand up. Unanimous. What passes? The second motion is to create the position of the Golf Academy Director within Golf Operations Department effective November the 1st, 2020. Anyone like to make that motion? Mr. Tozan makes that motion. We need a second. Mr. Gillen seconds. Mr. Tozan, comments?
Just that, I think it's a good move for us. It puts Hoppy back in the position of being the ambassador. Thank you. It puts Hoppy back in the position of being the ambassador that he should be for our Diamondhead, and I think it's a good move overall for all of us.
Anyone else? Mr. Ramraj.
Ditto what I just said a minute ago, okay? Don't need to say it again.
I will read you
My apologies, y'all.
also the goal of this proposal. I think it's in your packet anyway. But part of it is that the individual that would be responsible for the practice range and the related areas, the range ball dispenser, vending machines, restrooms, and he'll be responsible to promote and sell Diamondhead to the general market. Because that's something that we have got to do. We've done some of that in the past, but he's got a lot of contacts on it to generate new business in the form of corporate golf outings. Because we're in a unique situation by having 2 golf courses here. No one else along, at least Mississippi, along here that I'm aware of is that. So there's a whole bunch of things, and it will be a part of the day. Every day would be dedicated to the pursuit of new business for Diamondhead. And there's an interesting point too, those hitting bays, for those of you who do play golf, they want to work out a way that they will be able to rent them by the hour. Okay, so if you go over there and you can see how bad your swing is. The general manager speaks very highly of this thing, and he's got a lot more experience dealing with golf things than any of us do. So we like his idea. Mr. Nutting?
Just as an aside, our golf academy is the only one of its type on the coast. It's an amazing amenity that needs to be marketed and pushed, and has a wonderful chance to generate revenue, which we certainly need.
Any other comments? Okay, we'll take a vote. All in favor, raise your hand. 9-1. Thank you. Now we have a motion to erect 1 or 2 signs. That's the way it first started, near the duck pond on Gex Drive, asking people not to release ducks and geese in the area. We may, based on what Ms. Gray said and presented to us, we may want to amend that at some point. But anyway, someone like to make that motion?
Do we know how much the signs are? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, the questions are, how much are the signs? Ms. Gray, do you have any idea?
I don't know how much they are, but if it means that y'all can't afford them,
No,
I'll get the SPCA to pay for them. Is that serious?
That's all. Because I can pay for the 2.
She'll pay for 7 or 8 around Twin Lakes.
If it gets rid of the geese, I will.
Thank you for those comments, Ms. Ertel. And we will hold you to that one. Does anybody else have any comments? So now we're looking at a motion, though. Somebody's got to make the motion. And then we need, Ms. Rayner will make the motion. Second it. Now, do we want to amend it? Because it actually says, the original motion says to erect 1 or 2 signs near the duck pond on Gex Drive. So now, Ms. Gray is asking us, or I didn't know about it, she'd done earlier, to include the Twin Lakes area. Well, we can figure what the sign is, I think. Because she wants us to include ducks, geese, gators, turtles. and
I
so
make a motion to amend it to go to the areas that are determined, and the sign should include ducks, geese, alligators, and turtles.
Okay, Ms. Rayner seconds that one. I think we did that one backwards, but it's okay. All right, any other further discussion? Okay, all in favor of that? Raise your hand. It's unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, the next one is a motion to approve the pothole repairs to the marina launch approach area for not to exceed $3,500. I'd like to make that motion. Mr. Gillen makes the motion, second. Dr. Nutting seconds it. Discussions, Mr. Gillen?
As I had said, I think a little bit earlier, we can't afford to do a complete resurface of that area around the ramp, and the potholes are becoming a problem. This is I think from what I've understood about what they're going to do, this should take care of it for the foreseeable future and give us the life expectancy that we would need until we can do a complete resurface.
Any other comments? I have just one. If you want to ever see something that's really fun and it's cheap to do, go out by the marina launch Saturday or Sunday afternoon and see them try to pull the boats up onto the trailers. It's really, really interesting. But they do have a severe problem trying to get out because the wheels are just spinning and things.
Gary, I think he's making fun of us.
I wasn't even talking about anybody in particular. It was just hilarious.
I do have an additional comment since you brought up the boats going in and out. That yesterday, I launched my boat in the marina and there was a lot of trash in the water that we all know came from the storm, and there's not a limited amount that we can do about that. But when we came back in, the water had blown all of the trash away that was in the area where the boats were, except the actual launch area. And the gentleman who pulled his trailer out of the water before me was a small skiff. When he got his trailer out of the water, it looked like a duck line. It was just covered with, and he made the comment to me, I'm gonna have to go relaunch my boat in Bay St. Louis to get the weeds off between the runners of the trailer and the hull, because you can't just pull them out, you got the weight of the boat there. So I would suggest to our general manager in that respect that maybe our maintenance people can come up with a way. We can't clear the whole harbor, but it would be really helpful. We could probably do it with long rigs if we paid some attention to just the area where the boats go onto the trailers. It would be a huge help to the members.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, we'll call for the question. All in favor of spending the money to repair the marina launch approach area? Raise your hand, please. Okay, it's unanimous.
Gary voted twice.
Okay, the next motion is a motion to cease the process of issuing permits for architectural actions effective November 1st, 2020. Anyone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Ramirez makes a motion. Anyone second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Tell. Mr. Ramirez?
Well, the reason for this is that back years ago, before the city incorporated, the only way to keep the architectural control over what was going on at Diamondhead was to issue permits through POA. Since covenants had started to expire, well, let me back up. For the past several years, if somebody wanted to put up a fence or a shed or whatever, you had to get a permit from the city and also from the POA. Now the covenants have started to expire, there are people that don't have to get a permit from the POA, they just go get a permit from the city. Well, since that's the case, it's not, I think it's right for everybody to do it the same way, which means that if one person only has to go get a permit from the city, let the city take over the architectural control and issue the permits for those activities and upgrades.
Anyone else have any comments? I will tell you that when we met with the group from Purcell, the attorneys, they had no objection to this at all. And for those of us, three of us who are on the architectural review committee at this point, basically the only thing we've dealt with since we've been on here are fences and accessory buildings, sheds. That's it.
I have a quick question.
So as the covenants expire, are we going to be phasing out the architectural committee?
Well, there's some people who are
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, because the question was, if I'm not, I believe, was, as the covenants expire, will the architectural review committee go away? Okay? The answer was yes. However, there are places where the covenants are in perpetuity. However, if we reach the point that expenses go up, that expenses for the people in those areas go up, I can guarantee you they're gonna figure out a way to get out. Okay?
Thank you.
So. We've done everything, haven't we?
I do have another question. If I'm not mistaken, it was either the actual covenants or the charter that established the architectural committee as a separate committee from the board, and the board has no power over it. So I think if we're gonna talk about disbanding the architectural committee at some point, we would have to refer to the POA's charter or whatever established it, because it is separate from the board, and the board, again, has no control over it. It has equal authority as the board does.
So maybe we need to table this and ask the new attorney to look at it and give us a legal opinion before we actually do anything?
I'm good with that.
Okay, so we haven't done this one in a while. We want to table it. Anybody could make a motion on that, can
Make that motion.
Rescind the motion to take it back.
we? Okay, well, I think, who made the motion? You want to take it back? Okay. We'll solve that one. We'll get it solved, okay, one way or the other. Okay, next thing, one of them that we added was the feral swine removal. Mr. Gillen?
I make a motion to renew the contract with the USFDA to trap and dispose of pigs in the area of the airport.
I'll second that.
It's a contract that is for the fiscal year starting on November 1st, or I guess you could say it's a fiscal year. November 1st, runs for 1 year, not to exceed $2,500. The contract we had with them before, that was for 6 months, cost us a little over $800. With the, I guess you could say, airplanes taking off and landing at our airport, we certainly don't need them running into pigs. And they, as people say, they multiply like rabbits.
And they don't trap them. I thought they were using them more.
Lethal.
Oh, okay. That was under my, I'm sorry.
All of the means end up lethal. But the pigs that were trapped last 6 months were all trapped. There was no hunting involved, I guess you could say. And then they were euthanized.
Okay, so they were trapped, but then euthanized. We'll just leave that one alone, I guess. And I don't think they're pigs, they're hogs, right? Yeah. Okay, any other comments on this one? Okay, all in favor of the motion, raise your hand.
Hang on just a second, go get one question. Okay, so I know that I feel like it's a good process and they're taking care of the hogs. Are we paying per hog, or are we paying for the gear for, I mean, how is that working? I mean, do you pay by what they get? Do you pay
No.
by the time?
No,
Do you pay?
you basically are paying them for their effort that they figure it'll take them, over this period of time, they'll expend about 50 hours. So I guess you could say some of it is for hourly labor, some of it is for, if they do use a helicopter to hunt some of them, you'll be paying for some of that, and for the pens that they use to trap it.
Okay, what I'm looking at is this is an ongoing thing that's gonna keep going and keep going and keep going. Is there some way to end this whole process? Like, let's go flush out the woods, get them all out of here, kill them all and be done with it, you know what I'm saying?
Not a
We've been
chance.
killing.
It's kind of like, you want to get, kind of like trying to get rid of the ducks at the pond.
I mean, it's not that I have a problem with it, it's just that I'm trying to understand the.
It's gonna be a perpetual
Okay.
motion machine.
All right. I guess I'm hoping for something else, but anyway, go
We've been
ahead.
doing it for 20-some years.
Oh, okay, we'll have a vote on it, all in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. Okay, the next one has to do with the fuel nozzle at the airport.
As I had said earlier, we've expended a good deal of money on replacing a hose reel that wasn't working, to make sure that we take good care of the people who are coming to get fuel. And it was found that the fuel nozzle was acting up. It's been taken apart, it worked for a few days, and it acted up again. And as I said, $700 to rebuild a nozzle that was probably there for the last 25 years is, we didn't feel was good money spent, and that the $1,000 for a brand new one would be money much better spent than trying to rebuild it.
Any other questions or comments?
No.
You didn't make a motion.
Motion to replace the fuel nozzle at the airport, not to exceed $1,000.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second by Ms. Hertel, and we actually discussed it out of order, but that's okay. Ms.
Are
Hertel?
we voting? 'Cause
Okay, all right. We're now gonna vote on that. If you're in favor of replacing the nozzle, please put your hand up. Okay, once again, that's unanimous. Okay, the last thing that we've added today was about the boat lift. If you could just tell us, or make the motion for that.
A motion to allow Mr. Tommy Tusa to install a boat lift in his rented space on the floating docks at his expense, contingent on a signed agreement addressing all legal matters.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got, Mr. Gillen made a motion, Dr. Nutting seconded. Any other comments? Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, 9-1. Okay, that concludes everything. Anybody else have anything that needs to be said? One final thing. Oh, I'm sorry, do we have comments on non-agenda items?
You got a hand up there.
Well, I'll talk to you later, right after we adjourn. Or did you sign up to speak?
Well, I didn't know what the agenda items were gonna be described as, so I didn't. I just wanted to ask 2 questions of clarification on things you've already passed.
Okay, go on.
I understand item 2, but the golf committee chairman used a phrase that struck me, and I'd like a little bit of clarification on the phrase, repurpose the golf academy. To what?
I think he means to include the person who's running it is have to sell the golf academy and so forth out on the public market.
Okay,
To try to get people.
How about that? The second question was, and this is a legal question, because this has to do with another agenda item. But on, item 5, on the architectural permits, the last sentence of the second paragraph states that, with the POA no longer issuing permits, it frees up that employee to focus on another area that has been identified as somewhat neglected in the past. Could you clarify that other area?
Actually, we table that one, so we'll be able to clarify it a little bit later for you, okay?
Yep.
Anyone else? Anyone make